All right, this is Matt Mrozik, and I think this is work in progress number 3. It's 3 or 4 on the quarter scale Eric Sosa Wolverine for Chris Crespo. So it's been a while since I touched this because I've been out of town for spring break and I've got a lot of projects going on. But so we decided to go with the gloss black rim for the base. This will get painted later, but I had to do this step first. And I sprayed this at the same time I did the gun stock for a client. So if you follow me, you may have seen that. So it looks pretty good right now, but there's a little bit of dirt in there. And in case you don't know, gloss coat tends to shrink over time. And so now it's a little bit of orange peely. So we're gonna wet sand this. And if I don't go through, which is easy to do, I'll be able to polish it out and it'll look really good. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna sand this down to get the dirt out and get it smooth, and then we'll polish it up. So I've got some water in here, and I put a few drops of dish soap in there, like Dawn or something like that. And I'm going to try starting out with 1000 grit sandpaper, wet dry, and I also have 2000. Ideally, I'd like to start with 1500. Actually, I think I'm going to skip the 1000. I think that's going to be too coarse, and I have a real good chance of going through that really quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 2000. And I'm going to cut it up into smaller pieces. That's easier to handle. And I'm going to put it in the water. I'm going to let it sit in the water just for a minute or so. Whenever you're wet sanding a paint surface, you want to let your paper kind of sit in the water for a little bit. If you just start sanding, you want to kind of condition the paper for sanding. It'll cut better, less chance of doing excessive damage to your paint surface. So we're going to start out with 2000. I'm going to put that in there for a second. But I got a towel down because this is a messy process. And this is like the same steps I used to, when I used to paint cars, the same steps. You want to make sure that the surface is clean, that there's no dust on it, because if there is and you start sanding, you're just going to, those little pieces of dust become big pieces of sandpaper and just will scratch the ever-living poo-poo out of the piece you're working on. So we're going to see if we can get this a show car finish. If I go through or something, I'll have to respray the black and re-clear coat it. So let's see. So a little soapy water, 2000 grit sandpaper, and basically you're going to sand this. Get them in frame, yeah. And you have to check your work every once in a while, because what you're trying to do is get rid of the orange peel. And if you don't know what orange peel is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It looks like the surface of your paint. It looks like like the peel of an orange. So if I take this and I wipe this off, and you look at it, you can see all the shiny spots. Well, that's the orange peel. So what we want to do is we're going to sand this till this is completely flat. There's no shiny spots. And once that's done, then you know you have all the orange peel out. Now it's real easy when you're wet sanding to go through on the edges, and this has quite a few edges. So I gotta be real careful that I don't go through. Like I said, if I go through, I'll have to start over. I've got probably, if I remember correctly, I sprayed like 4 or 5 good coats of clear on this. This is the U-Pole clear, and it's had a good week and a half, 2 weeks to cure. It would have been easier to sand right away after spraying it, but it's also easier to go through. And it's also better when you're doing this to actually let the clear coat cure for about a week. Let it shrink. I know when I used to do cars, I would paint a car. I would let the paint, if I was doing a clear coat, I'd let it sit for at least a week, wet sand it, buff it out. And then many times, a year, depending on what, how long we had the car in the shop, I might have to go back and re-wet sand some of the spots and rebuff it as the paint shrinks, because it shrinks over time. So I'm just gonna go real slow, and I'm gonna check my work every once in a while, just to make sure I'm not going through. And I don't have and what we're going to do is we're going to wet sand this progressively with higher grits. First with the 2000, and we're going to work our way all the way up to 2000 grit polishing. It's not a polishing cloth, it's like the sanding cloth. if I had a little like hand buffer, like I don't know if they make them, like a mini hand buffer, I could use a little miniature motorized hand buffer with some polishing compound and polish it from here. But I don't have one of those, and I don't know if they make one, like a little micro, like if Micro Mart makes a little. And I could try to use a Dremel, but man, that'd be, I think they may go too fast. I wonder if I have a polishing wheel for my Dremel. I may try that, but I could, man, I'm kind of scared to try that. I could go through really quick. I think the trick when you're using a polishing, a buffing wheel or a polisher is there's two different kinds of polishing compound. One is basically like liquid sandpaper, and it's buffing out all the scratches with a liquid carrier. And within that liquid carrier, there's basically little granules. It's like sand, like I said, it's like liquid sandpaper. And you're using high speed, usually around 1500, 2000 RPM to get out all your sanding scratches. There's also another type of buffing compound you can use, which I used to use when I did cars. Instead of using a like liquid sandpaper, you're basically using heat, and the compound's like melting the clear coat or paint surface together. So there's advantage to both. The compound's a little quicker. It's a little bit easier to go through on the edges, but it creates a lot of swirl marks. The other stuff where it kind of melts the clear coat, it's slower, but you're not going to get as many swirl marks. And on a piece like this, I'd be kind of reluctant to try a powered buffing wheel on it. So I'm not going to show you this whole sanding to 2000 on screen because this will take me a while. But I want to get you to show you. I want to show you like what it's going to look like when I'm done with the 2000. So let me get one spot looking good. And I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on this. Like I said, I don't want to go through. So I'm not really putting any pressure down. I'm just, and you can tell when you're sanding, there's a lot of orange peel. It'll feel kind of rough, and as it goes away, that feel of roughness will go away. So I'm doing this while I'm waiting for some other stuff to, oops, I went through right there. So, so now I get to start over, unfortunately. So I was afraid of that. So I didn't have enough clear on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand this down. I'll go ahead and do it with the 2000. I'll go ahead and hit with the 1000 grit sandpaper. Since I got to repaint it, it's no big deal. I'll redo it tonight. And I think when I was painting this, I had it on a pedestal on one of my turntables, and it was kind of down low. I think I need to get up higher in my spray booth. So now I'm just going to go in here with my 1000 grit, and I'm going to get it all really nice and smooth and basically get it ready to paint again. Unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes when you do that. And it's not like I can just go through and try to. Clear coat's really, really hard to blend. I used to have to do it on cars every once in a while. It's tough. It's really hard to get it to blend all the way so you don't see an edge where you blended. So when I do this next time, I think what I'm going to have to do is just really make sure I hit this really good. And I'll try to do a better job of making sure I don't get any dirt in the paint, because that's the reason I'm having to do this really. And there's a few dry spots, but... So I'll stop recording for now, and I'll come back once this is ready to paint again. Alright, so we're in the paint booth. I sanded this down with a 1000 grit. You can see it's nice and dull. You can see all the spots that I sanded through. And it's actually a good thing I sanded through, because when I was looking at this, I actually kind of missed this upper lip up underneath here. And not that you would ever see that, but you know, you want to make sure it's done right. So I've got it raised up higher so I can get spray all the way around it. So now what we're going to do is I have Mr. Color GX Black into my airbrush, and we're going to spray this on. I got a tap cloth here. If I can spray this without getting any dust, or at least get it really, really slick and not have to worry about any orange peel, that is ideal. If there's a little piece of dust here and there, That's not the end of the world. I can sand it out, but if the whole thing is orange peely, and that's kind of how it was last time, and I think it's just because I couldn't get. I had it down below on like really low, and I couldn't get at a good angle on it. So we're gonna spray. I got it raised up here. I've got it blown off. I'm getting a tap cloth. I'm gonna try to get as much dirt off as possible, and we're gonna lay this black on a little bit at a time. We're gonna kind of mist it on, let it dry, tack it down, and just do a little bit of time. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I gotta put my respirator on or my mask. All right, so that's one coat. I'm gonna let that dry for a little while and I'll come back. All right, now I'm gonna do a second coat. All right, so there you can see I put it on pretty wet, and that's actually gonna be the last coat of paint. It's covered really well. I'm gonna let this dry for, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I'll come back and clear coat it. Okay, so this is dry for about 20 minutes, and I've got my U-Pole 2-part automotive acrylic urethane clear coat in the gun. Give this a real light wipe down with the tack cloth. So far it's looking really good. So I'm actually kind of glad I redid this because this is looking better than it did the first time. So sometimes you gotta do things a few times. Okay, so the first coat's gonna be kind of like a mist coat, and then we'll build it up with wet coats after that. Okay, well I kind of lied. I put on a mist coat and then followed up right after the wet coat. I was wanting to go on a little dry. I'm getting a little dirt, unfortunately. That's just, you know, most of my dirt comes from my airbrush. So as long as I get this really, really smooth and spraying and just have to go in and kind of sand out some of the dirt, I'll be good. So I'm going to let this dry. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm going to let this dry probably, it's called let it flash off. You're doing these automotive colors, you want to let them, it's called flash off. Basically let the solvents evaporate in between coats, otherwise you'll have curing problems. So we're going to let this dry for, I don't know, let it flash 10-15 minutes, and then we'll come back and do the same thing again. I'll probably do this 4 times just in case I have to sand. All right, here we go, another coat. Ooh, that is looking really good. Got a few pieces of dirt, but I'll be able to sand those out later. We're gonna let this sit, and we're gonna come back and do it again in a little bit. Okay, so this is dried for another 10-15 minutes, and it's looking really, really slick. This is how I wish it would have looked the first time, because this won't require, as this clear coat kind of dries, it settles and slicks out even more. So I'm gonna do one more nice wet coat and really, really slick it out, and then it'll be good to go. I have a lot of clear coat here. I may do 2 more wet coats, just because I have a few pieces of dirt in there, and I want to have enough room to sand. Like I've got one piece right there, a little piece right there. You know, a little few pieces of dirt I'll need to sand out later. So I need to get my respirator. So I'm going to do 2 more wet coats, and then we'll look at it tomorrow and probably sand out the bits of dirt then. I'm running some thinner through my brush because it seems like it's coming out dry, which means my brush is trying to get a little clogged. Oh, there we go. Now my brush is getting a little clogged, so I'm going to go ahead. The trick is you can't leave a dry edge. You have to put this on wet pretty quick all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and do my last coat right now. Alright, I just went ahead and kept adding on clear until I ran out for two reasons. I just wanted to keep slicking it out, and another, I wanted to kind of try to bury some of the pieces of dirt I have in here just because they'll be easier to sand out if I have multiple layers of clear on this. You know, basically what you're doing is when you're sanding dirt out of clear coat, you're not sanding the dirt out, you're basically evening the finish out so you can't see the dirt. The dirt's still there, but by the time you're done sanding it and polishing it, you don't see it. It's kind of like you're basically kind of hiding it. So I'm going to take this off the tripod here a second and kind of show you a nice shot of this, but it's glass smooth. It looks really good. I actually bought myself a touch-up gun, kind of gun I used to use when I used to paint cars. I just don't have a compressor right now that's got enough oomph to spray with it. So eventually, when I do stuff like this, I'll be able to do it much quicker and more efficient with that kind of gun. I'll be able to lay clear down much quicker. The trick with this automotive clear coat is you have to do it quick. You can't go slow. If you stop and leave a dry edge, it's going to show up. It'll show up as that orange peel, as I mentioned. So you got to do it quick. You got to get it down. You got to get it on. You know, that first coat you put down is kind of, you know, not the wettest coat, but in the end, when you're all done, you want to lay down wet coats without running. And this U-pole is actually really good. I laid on pretty damn thick, and I have yet to run it. So it sprays really good, and it's not like a high-end clear coat. I'm cleaning my airbrush, that's why you can't see me doing anything. But the U-pole is not a super high-end clear coat. If I went like this, I think I paid like $35 or $40 for the spray for this quart. If I got a high-end clear coat of the same amount, it'd be like $90, twice as much. Now I think the U-pole price has gone up because people have asked me about it before, and I think on Amazon it's gone up to maybe $50 or $60. But still, I think it's worth it. So let's take a look here. But I think you'll agree that that's pretty slick. So you can see a little piece of dirt there. But you can see my reflection in there. That's what we want it to look like. So yeah, pretty awesome. So that's it for this video. Just kind of show you how to, it was supposed to be a wet sanding and polishing video, but it turned into a how to spray clear coat video. So there you go. We'll catch you guys next time.